I'm going to be talking about local Portland politics, our police, and the Portland street response. But even if you're not from Portland, you might be interested in what I have to say in this video. And I want to start off by reminding folks that local politics really matter. I know that shit is blowing up on the national level, and we have all of our focus on trying to stop the authoritarian regime of Donald Trump. I understand that. But we need to remember that Project 2025, Moms for Liberty, the Heritage Foundation folks, they have been infiltrating our local politics for decades. They have carefully stair-stepped themselves up and enabled, empowered this authoritarian takeover. Part of what they have done is to undermine democratic rule, the rule of law, in local communities all over this country and state politics as well. There's a reason Moms for Liberty, they target spots on school boards and try and get themselves elected. Politics starts at a school board level. That is where you begin to wield influence and wheedle your way into the political ecosystem of cities all over the country. And we have got to be beating them at their own game. So it is really important that we are involved, not just in national politics, right? We're in my Indivisible shirt today. Really important that we are involved on a national level with resistance like Hands Off, absolutely. But also that we are dialed into our state and our local politics, and we are engaging, and we are making sure that the rule of law controls the narrative, that democratic interests with a small d control what is happening instead of authoritarians. The way that we retake our democracy, the way that we make sure that this is the land of the free and the home of the brave for all Americans, where we have a country that is of the people, by the people, and for the people, is that we start local. The same way that grassroots organizing starts on a very local level and we build our power up. In permaculture, we say use the edges and value the marginal. The marginal here are those small little positions, those little issues on a local level that might seem insignificant to us. But when we are all engaged in fighting the good fight for democracy all over the country in all of our little townships and municipalities, all of those small changes to reestablish the rule of law, they build into a huge network. It's exactly the same as April 5th Hands Off, where we had 1,400 different protests around the country. We were all doing our own little thing in our own communities, but together we added up to over 5 million people. The united call for Elon Musk and Donald Trump to get their grubby little fingers off our government, off our way of life, out of our democracy. Maybe you're somebody who's not been involved in local civic engagement before. You've not really dabbled in local politics. I would encourage you to start out with your neighborhood association. Are there volunteer positions on various committees? I got my application in for one here in Portland. I'll talk about it later if I get the position. Okay, I'm not putting the cart before the horse, but with all of that in mind, Portland is facing a major budget crisis like most cities in the US. I've done a couple of videos on this, but they're basically asking us, would you rather cut after-school basketball programs for low-income kids? Or would you rather cut services to the parks? Or would you rather not have your potholes filled? And myself and lots of other Portlanders have said, it's real weird that y'all have selected the list of what you think is on the table to be cut. Why don't you let the people look at the full budget and we'll say what we think is necessary and not necessary? Why is it that you are creating this dichotomy of like, it's cut your parks or cut after-school basketball for kids? Are those really the only options? Why do you get to pick the list of things that are on the chopping block? And why are they all things that the most disadvantaged parts of the community need most? Things that in particular serve low-income families and communities like East Portland, where I live. So I was pleased as punch to see an article in the Willamette Week that came out on the 23rd of April saying council requested poll shows Portlanders overall would prefer cuts to police over parks and fire. Yeah, another one of the things they listed on the chopping block was reducing our 911 service and cutting our fire departments. I think is a way of, again, being like, oh no, we can't have 911 services cut. So yeah, I guess we'll agree that we shouldn't really fund our parks. Instead, the people of Portland were like, actually, we don't accept any of these things on your list. We don't want any of these things cut. These are all necessary and important parts of what the government in Portland should be funding. We reject your premise entirely and cut the cops. Cut our giant, bloated Portland Police Bureau budget. Sorry, it's going to be impossible for me to not editorialize when we talk about the Portland Police Bureau. Let me just point out this thing that was on Northeast Sandy Boulevard a few days ago. The last thing American citizens need is a highly militarized police force. But for years and years, police departments around the country have been able to apply for and get military equipment. I don't care if the Portland Police Department did get this vehicle for free, and I know they have more than one. There's no justification for a civilian police force to have vehicles like this, to have military-grade equipment, machines of war. And just because they got it for free, the insurance, the maintenance, the gasoline, the salaries of the cops who are driving this around town being like, what up, I got a big cock, that's all paid for by our tax dollars. I told you, don't get me started on the cops in Portland and how they're buddies with the Proud Boys. Okay, I'm going to rein it in a little bit. Anyway, other Portlanders agree with me, a preponderance of them. According to the Willamette Week, more people want to see the police budget cut rather than homeless services. Portland's cops, like most major cities, have a long history of brutalizing vulnerable people, not knowing how to handle folks in a mental health crisis because they're not, cops have like this much training, y'all. So in Portland, we have the Portland Street Response. Armed police should not be responding to somebody in a mental health crisis because we know how that tends to end. Instead, the PRS responds to folks who are having a mental health crisis. Residents of Portland are big fans of the Portland Street Response because we know that it saves lives, it protects vulnerable people. Cops are not mental health experts, and when they intervene with somebody in crisis, then innocent civilians get hurt. So I was pleased to see this week Portland City Council's Safety Committee passed a resolution to make the Portland Street Response part of the city's emergency response system, not just part of, an equal branch of the city's emergency response system. That now moves on to the full city council for a vote, which is why local politics matter. It matters who's on your city council. It matters whose voices are influencing local politicians. It should be your voice and my voice. If we don't weigh in with our local electeds, you know who they're hearing from. Moms for Liberty, other right-wing organizations, because those folks have been mobilized for decades to interface with local government. And I want to give you a specific example from here in Portland. This came out yesterday, April 24th from Coin 6 News. It's entitled, Portlanders Press Leaders on Crime and Safety Amid Budget Cuts. As Portland grapples with tough budget cuts, some residents are making it clear that crime has been a growing issue for years, except our crime is actually down in Portland. On Wednesday night, a packed crowd gathered downtown to push public safety leaders for answers. Coin 6 News, this is a weird way to phrase this. You're making it sound like a town hall. But it actually was a $55 a head fundraising event for Future Portland, a conservative group with its own political action committee. Headlining speakers were Multnomah County District Attorney Nathan Vasquez and Portland Police Association President Aaron Schmautz. So who is Future Portland that is having their main speaker be the head of the Portland Police Union? I spent a little time while I was in the waiting room at the vet hospital this morning rummaging through their Instagram posts. They supported Renee Gonzalez for mayor in the last election. Renee Gonzalez, who violated campaign finance law in Oregon, who's a big fan of the cops, who, in my opinion, was one of the worst members of city council we've ever had. That Renee Gonzalez. Future Portland also endorsed disgraced ex-mayor Sam Adams' bid for Multnomah County Commissioner. You know, Sam Adams, who, when I think he was pushing 50 and was our completely incompetent mayor, admitted to sleeping with a young man 3 weeks after he turned 18. They had a relationship before them, a close to 50-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy. Quoting an Oregonian article here from back in 2009, Adams said he knew what he did was morally wrong, but at the time, my greater concern was under 18 illegal. Yeah, you were a middle-aged man grooming a 17-year-old. By the way, he also admitted to serving as a job reference for that young man after their affair. Did the classic non-apology of saying, I made a mistake. A mistake is when I accidentally put on one navy blue sock and one black. It's not when you groom a 17-year-old so you can start sleeping with him as soon as 3 weeks after he turns 18, and then lie about it to the entire city of Portland. That guy thought he was going to reconstitute his political career in 2024, and Future Portland endorsed him. These are the folks who are actively driving local politics if you or I aren't. This is how groups like Moms for Liberty, the Heritage Foundation, folks who want to push this country and our communities in a way that we don't want them to go. This is how they get their little hooks in, and they make sure the policies they want get passed. They make sure the tone of government and the priorities of government are swayed the way that they want. They have their $55 a plate fundraising dinners. They have their political action committees. They are infiltrating government at every level. And we have got to be smart, and we have got to beat them at their own game because they've been beating us for decades, and enough is enough. I know it's a big ask to say we have to focus on the national issues, but we've also got to see what's going on at a state level and a local level. We have got to reclaim our country from the ground up. We have got to take back American democracy from the local level up. I just want to encourage all of y'all in Portland or anywhere else, get involved in local politics.